Welcome to Worlds Cooldown. I'm Quickshot, joined by Deficio and Kobe. Vidius will join us in a moment. Let's go G2, let's go G2. The Grand Slam is on. G2 take down SKT 3-1. They're staring down the barrel of FPX next weekend. What a series, Deficio.
Dude, I'm like so nervous. It's actually insane. I don't know why I'm nervous now. Like they just won, but it's like, it's so crazy, like when you have to go through SKT as well. You know, they've beaten them twice now this year in best of fives. It was an insane back and forth series. I think you and me were screaming at the monitor for like 40 minutes. Like,
yep.
Even doing pick and matches was like, what are you doing? What about this? What about that? You know, everything is just like, it's so crazy. And then they end up pulling it out in the end.
What's crazy to me too, watching it, is the tables have completely turned. Now it looks like when these teams match up, it is SKT and the SKT players making these mistakes on stage. They're the ones feeling the pressure. They have to sub out their support player, bring back the veteran players. Then you even have Faker giving up key plays late in the game. And G2 are making them feel that way.
For the first time ever at a League of Legends World Championship where SK Telecom are competing, they do not advance to the finals. Unbelievable. All right, let's talk a little bit about the series. Let me invite Vidius to Cooldown.
Mr. Europe.
Vidius, welcome back. You have been one of the very fortunate casters to join G2 on many of their international best of 5 victories. And what a ride it was.
Yeah, I'm really tired.
You're tired?
You haven't even played.
I know, but it was really exhausting watching cast. I had to like focus on so many things.
Here's a key thing to highlight. A very key thing to highlight. Last year at Worlds, whenever Vidius casted Fnatic, they won. And they got all the way to the final. This year, whenever he's casting G2, they win.
So listen,
he's the lucky charm.
We've got some rolls now of each of the games as they played out one by one. Obviously, we heard a lot from Vidius in-game, but you know, give us some of the thoughts as we see these clips rolling out, like Kobe, well, Vidius, you're gonna start, I guess.
Yeah, but the main thing I actually want to say is I actually felt nothing but like sadness for Faker, because I read in an interview about how he said that he is not, it doesn't matter if he wins or not, he wants to play like he used to. He wants to be back at his peak. And a large part of why they lost this game was because of him. And I can't imagine how difficult that must be for him as a player, given his history and accolades and like what this means to him.
So I definitely agree late game, but I think he was the one-man army in the early game in this one. I know that doesn't mean anything for him now that he lost, but like we were watching that Kiana just run to every lane, picking up more and more kills, and that's why we thought G2 would lose this game and we'd go to game 5.
There were so many moments I thought it was going to be 5.
You obviously had your 3-2 prediction as well.
Kobe, this entire series, the amount of time G2 Esports spent with a significant lead was 2% of the game time. 2.3%
That's going to be
of gameplay minutes. Okay, G2.3% with the lead, beating SKT. But like, Kobe, how does this team do it? That consistently they seem to be behind. They concede Barons 3 games in a row, yet they win team fights over and over.
The biggest thing to highlight for me whenever I'm watching G2 is the fluidity of this team. We talk about it in many ways, right? It's either mid laner roaming around, support laners going mid. I mean, there's so much that you have to keep track of with this team, because even if you get a lead versus them, they look for these trades on the other side of the map, and then they'll look for an even more aggressive move after that trade. Those are the key things where they actually get back into it, and it's actually eye-opening to watch these games live.
Especially when you look at game 1, like the macro, the decision-making, right? Move, counter-move. Every one of us is watching League of Legends. They're watching 4D League of Legends.
And I know Korea for the last 2 years has not been dominating, but it was still crazy to just say to yourself, okay, G2 in this game just out-macroed SKT. That's how they won that game in the first one. Because they played the sides way better. They kept pulling them around. Whenever they walked into the shadows, SKT were like, oh, they're going to show up over here. Nope, over here instead. And I think, as Kobe's saying, the fact they're fighting their way back when they're behind, the fact they have 5 creative players who are all on the same page, like, it's unbelievably hard to find that. It's almost impossible. but this combination they
It's
do have.
improbable. G2 have proved it is
Almost
possible.
impossible. Almost impossible. You're not going to get another combination like this put together right now, where the players are so similar in how they actually want to play the game and the amount of trust they have in each other.
And it's really important to recognize that you could argue SKT made mistakes. But it is one thing to say that SKT mistake. It's a completely other ball game to then punish those mistakes, because that is what G2 do so exceptionally well. It's like back in the days of Season 2, I remember Moscow 5, and the expression always used to be, you give them a finger, they'll take the whole arm.
Yep.
And like you can say exactly the same thing for G2. If you give them anything, they will not hesitate to take it and immediately turn it into
They will
their
use time to slap you.
Plus, they're the team that initially puts you in this position. They apply early pressure to force you to make decisions.
Yeah.
And then that's where these mistakes start coming from, right? Because they keep the pressure on you and wait for you to squirm.
Now, before we get to the player of the game, I saw some commentary in socials and discussion on Reddit saying this was the greatest best of 5 that we have seen. I want to get temperature gauge. Where on the scale does it land?
As an EU fan, we're definitely up there.
Yeah, we're up there.
It didn't get to 5.
Okay.
But the closeness of all
The
four
competitive
games,
nature of each game.
Yeah, and like your mechanical skill you're seeing and the quick decision making, like all that was absolute top tier. I guess if you want to say greatest of all time, you're literally just missing game 5.
Yeah.
That G2 wins.
By the way, you were yelling for game 5, and I was literally yelling at you. No, 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 end it now, end it now.
You guys are too scared. You're like, I don't want to chance
Yes,
game 5.
I don't want the risk.
Now.
I don't want the risk. Okay, so let's move on to the Oppo player of the game. There was some contention, there was some debate, but in the end, it was awarded to G2 Jankos. I'm going to turn to Kobe. Why did we go with Jankos at the end?
There were just so many games where a lot of the early game you're thinking, how are they actually going to get out of this? And it felt a lot facilitated by Jankos. This one in particular, this is the one where the Renekton had 2 kills, had dove under tower, they forced the flash, they forced the teleport, and this is the only reason they can actually get back into this game.
And we had a lot of games where Faker actually had the roaming advantage, and you're also playing against one of the best, if not the best jungler in the world. And Jankos were still able to have an impact in every game and actually keep his lanes in this, which was so key. Because G2, while they did fall behind early in some of the games, they never fell far enough behind that they couldn't actually play. And he was a huge part of keeping them in the game.
I would actually love to know for how much of the games were spent like within like a 1K gold difference, because it honestly felt like the entire series was
super
just
close.
on a knife's edge the entire time. And we talked a lot in the game, like the only way you can discern who has a lead is like look at the levels, look at the items, like look at the power states, because the gold at the top is not going to tell you who is in control at this point in the game.
So, Vedius, I have just heard from production that the amount of game time spent in the even stage, within a comparable percentage, 79.9% of total gameplay minutes was at an equal, neutral, even state.
That's a very high number.
That is a high
That is
number.
phenomenal.
That is
And
unbelievably high.
of the 79.9, you had an additional 3.2 or 2.3, whatever it was, percent was the one that G2 had a lead. Right? Like it's phenomenal, phenomenal. So, SK Telecom have been eliminated from the 2019 World Championship, and we have set ourselves up for the World Finals featuring Fun plus Phoenix versus G2 Esports in Paris next Sunday, November 10th. Kobe, EU versus China 2 years in a row. The journey, the way we got here, definitely a lot of surprises and ups and downs, but what do you make of the final?
This final feels so different from last year. Even though it is another EU versus China, the way that they are entering this final feels like completely different footing, because last year there was just so much confidence and hype behind the individual power players on Invictus Gaming. This Fun plus Phoenix, they're a team that's all about team play. They're about setting up these intelligent early games, trying to construct these team fights later on. They've got Doinby roaming around on champions that no other mid laner is really embracing to that level. Whereas G2 are coming out from the SKT side of the bracket. They're coming in full force ahead. Like the confidence must just be so high for this team.
But I also actually think G2 is so focused around the teamwork and the coordination, the synergy between the players, that actually fits a lot with the FPX story. Because at Worlds, you're not individually just outplaying every guy you're facing, also because you have to go through, like, you know, Down One Gaming and SKT. There's a lot of good players on these teams. So they end up relying a lot on that synergy. I think it's going to be a bloodbath, because I think FPX plays a lot faster than SKT in this game, and they will force a lot of plays early with Doing B especially. And I know G2, they will match it. They will not step down. And say,
we've seen them get down and dirty
they will get down there.
in the 2019 season.
What I loved about what Jat was saying throughout the series was how SKT, the total number of Worlds game, pretty much all sat on Faker. It was a very young roster in terms of international experience, and there are 200 combined Worlds appearances on this G2 roster. And that experience and that teamwork all came together in today's series. And I think when we saw FPX versus Invictus Gaming, you saw how valuable teamwork is. And what makes me very excited is it feels much more about, it doesn't matter how many superstars you have unless they can work together. Because I feel like the superstars of the Rookie and the Shy and the superstar that is Faker could not compete against the unified teams that were FPX and G2. And now we get to see two of the best teams collide, whose teamwork comes out on top.
Oh, man, that's what we're going to have to find out. That's Sunday 10th, next weekend, World Finals. Countdown will start at 12 Central European Time. That's 3 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. There will be a special 1-hour countdown, and then the opening ceremony following at 1 p.m. local, 4 a.m. Let's talk a little bit more about this and get some expectations, and I'm going to see whether or not I can challenge you to give me some predictions. Are we going to be brave enough to predict World Finals?
It's so fresh.
I'm seeing fears. I'm seeing
so
fears.
fresh.
But the one topic that I do want to get your comments
3-0
on.
FPX.
No. We could not have seen more different semi-final styles. Right? Yesterday's series and today's series. Again, looking at socials, looking at discussions. Let's talk a little bit about how the different sides of the bracket won their respective matches, and which side we're going to see next week. Because, Defisher, you've already said G2 can get down and dirty. We can see them go, you know, macro and calculated. So
but that's why I'm going with the down and dirty style, because I think if you look at... So the way it works right now is if a team on the Rift decides, I want to play aggressive, I want to set up early tower dives, I want to have a proactive jungler, then you are forced to match it. You can't play super defensive. You can't just play, you know, defensive vision and then sit back and try and only react on the other side of the map. It doesn't work right now. So I think with FPX, with them obviously being proactive through mid into side lanes, G2 will match it 100%. So it might not be IG versus FPX like level in terms of there's pure fights all the time, but we're going to get more early game action than in this series.
You keep saying match it. You keep saying match it. They have to beat it.
No, they can just match it and beat them later.
Wait, you believe that, like, this is one of the best team fighting teams in the world. They
So
come
is
from
G2.
but they come from a region that is like built to.
Am I hearing G2 haters here?
I really am. Martin, I'm with you on this.
Out team fight SKT or what?
I mean, yeah, for sure.
And it's because out team fight RNG, also one of the team fight teams in the world. So hey, can we just hang on here and say G2 can also beat them late?
So let's go. Same question then, Kobe. Like, what's your take on this? You know, what do you anticipate G2's going to do if FPX tries to go, you know, semi-final style?
What do you mean, what are they going to do? They're going to play exactly how they've played all year long. They came in with the fastest stats. I don't know what this debate about, like, oh yeah, can they get fast and down and dirty? They have faster stats than FPX too.
They're the dirtiest team here. They're going to match it, man.
Oh, man. Oh, man. Okay, so look, that is going to be the finals next Sunday. I'm not going to hold you to predictions, but where would you see advantages? Let's get some early analysis that will lead to who you think has an edge.
So I would say, since we're so fresh off of these series, just immediate reactions from these games. The games that G2 just won look more impressive because of the amount of action and the amount of forced plays in the FPX and IG series.
You feel the FPX first 15 minutes?
The first 50 minutes we kept talking about. It's such an intelligent setup.
Yeah.
You know, FPX are doing all of these things. And they're doing all these things under pressure, right? Because IG kept drafting for these super strong lanes and then trying to split the map. But FPX did all these intelligent things to avoid getting crushed super hard early, then fighting at the objectives. But a little bit of kind of doubt gets in there because you also place some blame on Invictus because you feel like they didn't quite play to their best possible win condition. So that makes it hard.
Coming into the tournament, I believe that FPX was basically the same as G2, but with worse players. So I thought that the G2 carry potential.
I believe in the draw show
potential.
you actually said G2 light.
Yes,
if
I called
correctly.
FPX. I also no, that was down one.
Was it down one? There we go.
I called down one, but I thought like FPX and G2 had very similar playstyles, a very similar approach to the game. I ultimately just thought coming into the tournament that pound for pound, G2 would have better players in each role. I'm less inclined to believe that now. I think that one of the biggest differences would have been Perks versus LWX, but I think today we did see Perks not have the best series. I think that Teddy, in terms of laning phase, was very strong. And one of the biggest things I'm looking at is Crisp, because Crisp is a player that I think by far and away has been the most consistent support in the tournament. So I think bottom lane could be one of the biggest early game discrepancies. Of course, depending on which LWX shows up, because he's a little variable and his playstyle very similar to what we see from Perks, which is why I'm a lot more on the support play because of Crisp.
Yeah, I see the jungle support on FPX, like that combination, absolutely fantastic. And I carried them all the way through also in the regular season and in playoffs in the LPL. I think they can have an edge in terms of that combo. I do think G2 will have more tools in the bot lane when it comes to drafting for different things that can happen. But at the same time, I think FPX bot lane, they've actually managed to withstand almost anything during this tournament, and they actually showed up big time as well versus IG.
The thing I'm most curious about, because in this series, Caps even had back-to-back games with Orianna and Syndra. Now, Doinb is going to be one of the big questions that they have to answer, right? This is one of the big issues anyone going against FPX has to deal with.
Yeah.
And Tian and Chris are great facilitators for this team, but it's also about how they unlock Doinb, and all of them are working together. He's shown that he's sticking to that style. Predator Rumble, Nautilus mid, these types of things are the things that G2 is going to have to answer. And I think Caps is definitely up to it, but it is going to be different from what we saw today, right? They're attacking a very different beast than SKT.
And hopefully we have another very, very competitive series. All right, we are almost running out of time, so there is just one last topic I want to talk about. We have set some expectations for the finals, but we're on the verge of history being made. No team in League of Legends history has won Spring Split, MSI, Summer Split, and the World Championship. The G2 Grand Slam is a very real possibility. G2 Esports, the European team that won MSI, the first sort of, Western team to do it, obviously taking down Team Liquid as well. Like, let's just spend just a couple minutes talking about what this means for Europe, for the LEC, and for G2 Esports.
I mean, it means everything. I think also the fact that it's a lineup that was just put together this year. It's actually been built over like 3 to 4 years. It started, if you look at the lineup now, it started with just Perks. Then later on, they added Jankos and they added Wonder. And now, then the next evolution was then add Mickey and Caps. So it's not like they just put this lineup together like over one off-season. It's multiple off-seasons where they were building and they were upgrading. They were winning actually a lot of those years when they were still trying to upgrade. Then they had the 1 year last year where they didn't manage to win in Europe. And they said, okay, now we make the big changes. Caps was available.
And it's also so important to remember that, Promiscu was also added to this roster. But Vedius, let's talk a little bit about, just G2 and what this would mean, for the LEC, back-to-back finals for G2.
What I mean for the LEC, we'd be the best. I mean, how can you not be excited? It's one of these massive debates that every region has had, which is that who has the best teams? How do you define which is the best region? We've been fortunate to see the top seeds from, I'm going to call them the big three. I'm really sorry, Kobe. We now get to see them play, and G2 has now made it through the first raid boss. They now have one raid boss left to go through, and if they beat them, it's just officially confirmed that they are by far and away, like, they couldn't prove anything
There's no more room for doubt.
Yeah,
maybe G2 were the raid boss all along.
Kobe, anything to add?
I concur. Honestly, you can't argue, right? No. You win literally every major international event in the year, then this is your year.
And that's it on that bombshell. If you have missed anything from SKT versus G2, be sure to check out our rebroadcast starting at 8:30 p.m. CET. That's 11:30 a.m. PST. That was it from us here today. Thank you. We'll see you in Paris for the crowning of the 2019 World Champions. Please let it be G2. G2!
What are you willing to lose? You cover your wounds, but underneath them, a million voices in your head. twist of the knife, a turn of the screws. It's all in your mind, and it's fighting you on yourself. The storm is coming. Wow, kid, what you gonna do now?
He doesn't know there's 4 people here looking to kill him. Baker has TP, he can't make his way in. Caps is going to get the point. Quick CC, the instant lock with the follow through. The dominance is not enough, and G2 will find the pick and set their sights on the tier 2. G2 are coming out on top of the fight for now, but a beautiful body slam will not be enough. They're in the pinch. That is not where you want to be against Desire.
This time round with Faker on the LeBlanc.
Kick over the wall, Clint! Wow! Putting on a Lee Sin clinic as Perks goes down.
Go bury your demons and tear down the ceiling. Phoenix fly.
The cast comes out, but I can't believe it in the moment where it matters most. And Teddy now instantly has backline access. Disaster strike for GT, but the Galio is now coming in.
SKT are going to equalize the series.
Caps moving in, looking for the perfect shot. Where the Baron will go down, but G2 by the fight. Caps instantly taken out. The cleanse will not be enough. No, Caps alive on the backside, doing what he can. A sliver of life left, yet still keeping his team alive. They can turn this around. Teddy can turn this. Teddy can turn this. No, he gets taken out. And just like that, in an instant, the series is defined as G2 move to match point. Here comes the Horn. They're caught in the pinch. Mickey X can go forward. Baker invisible. Wants to pull another grass play, but this is massive. Vladimir trying to strike back. But Baker's ult is not going to be effective. Khan now has to run for his life. Game. He gets the final moment. Baker is gone. Teddy's next on the list. There's no way he can duel Yasuo. Amada's coming in, but he's just walking into the meat grinder of Perks. Khan, can he do it? They've done enough. They've done it. They're going to G2. Khan, can he get it done? He can't. The Vladimir. They can't do it. This is it. The greatest team in the history of League of Legends, taken down by the greatest team Europe has ever produced.